Aultemus and the group approach the southern cave entrance, or exit. The opening of the tunnel is covered in ice as runes on the inside of the tunnel walls pull in air rapidly and cool it down. Two attendants notice them coming and lower the intensity of the runes. Zazal bows before leaving the group as they rush through the tunnel, getting through the below freezing temperatures and wind as quickly as possible. After about 30 minutes of running, passing frozen bodies along the way, they emerge outside in a nondescript part of the savannah they were in earlier. Looking back, they see the runes grow in intensity again. "That was a close one. I'm surprised Zenti kept her mouth shut the whole time," Fuson boasts to the group. Zenti growls at him, but doesn't respond. "You've been really quiet recently, Zenti. What's wrong?" Aultemus prods. "Oh, no offense, but I don't think now is the time," Fuson responds. "Why not? Am I missing something? She's in the group now, right?" Aultemus says before getting cut off. I'm in the group now? Gee, thanks. I wasn't sure. I appreciate the invitation I apparently missed, but I don't want to be a part of this group. I'm here looking after Fuson until this stupid adventure is over, and then we're going home. I don't think a groundwalker such as yourself is capable of leading us. I'm just insurance to make sure you don't fuck anything up, Zenti blurts out. You think you could have done any better? From what I've seen, if you were in charge, we'd all be dead because you dislike the orcs for some reason, Aultemus growls back. Orcs are ash-covered ground dwellers. I could care less about them. We wouldn't have gone in that cave if it were up to me, Zenti says, scowling at Aultemus, both of them only a couple inches from each other. With an astromancer, Siora chimes in, who might have thought about invading our side of the world when he's older, had you done anything stupid. Shut up, tree fucker, Zenti yells. I'm tired of you responding to everything that I say. Not used to someone talking back to you, Siora replies calmly. It's called being a real person. You should try it sometime, princess. Girls, wait, what? Aultemus stammers, patting them on the shoulder. Both of them brush off, at first, until they notice what he's pointing at. Fuson is completely still. Siora leans over as her eyes begin to glow. She gasps and looks around, sending a wave of spirit energy in all directions. During the bickering, Fuson got frozen in place when no one noticed. Zenti and Aultemus enter defensive stance and look around. As Aultemus channels lightning into his body, Fuson's body struggles, but he manages to blink as his eyes turn white and Elodie takes over. We're fine, Elodie announces to everyone. In the distance, the Spectre's sword flies toward the group, Valeria riding on top of it. The sword, not aimed at anyone, flies by the group incredibly fast, and as it passes, Valeria shoots a net of shadow magic at Elodie, trapping her and flinging her with the sword and herself. Aultemus immediately zaps on instinct, maintaining the bolt of lightning and managing to keep up with the sword. Zenti and Siora are caught off guard and hesitate before beginning to chase after them when they hear a heavy, rapid stomping as the Spectre leaps out and crash lands in front of them, blocking their path. Zenti immediately begins to emit strong winds as her form begins to appear more cloudy. The edges of her body meld with the air around her, and her form is still easily recognizable. Zenti then billows forth a violent column of air from her wings at the Spectre, but it easily sidesteps the shot in an instant. It begins to rotate in a perfect circle around the two, while still appearing as though it was slowly walking up to them. After images of it appear all around them, with streams of light connecting all of them as it closes in. Close your ears, now! Zenti yells. Her form begins to fade as the air rapidly closing in on where she was. Fuck, Siora whispers as she drops the spirit energy she was building and covers her ears, forming spirit vines around her hands and a bubble around herself. When the Spectre closes in, still spinning, Zenti lets go, and all of the air building up releases violently in an ear-shattering snap. Siora's bubble shatters as she catapults away from the shockwave, landing and rolling onto the ground, gritting her teeth from the pain. The Spectre breaks from the spin, and the shockwave sends the figure flying back, dragging enough of the ground as a crack appears in the center of its chest, fading back into the starscape. Siora begins channeling her spirit energy again, while still prone on the ground, and Zenti reappears partly as a gust of wind and bombards the Spectre with pillars of violent wind again. The sound of the pillars, each sounded as if buildings were slamming into the figure, are incredibly loud. Each strike pushes the figure further and further back, eventually knocking it prone. The Spectre quickly jets its arms forward towards Zenti. After a small flash, a concentrated beam of fire erupts from the tips of its fingers, and completely engulfs Zenti, wisping her away. The Spectre slowly gets up and begins to walk towards Siora, who is still prone on the ground, and channeling spirit energy into a ball in her hands. After a moment, she notices both runes on her arms glowing. Oh no. she whispers to herself in a panic. The ball of spirit energy fluctuates in her hands. She closes her eyes and begins to breathe, concentrating on the ball. The fluctuating doesn't seem to let up as the specter grows closer. Siora, without looking, tosses the spirit ball and claps her hands, causing the ball to expand. The specter, holding both arms out in defensive position, creates a shield of light energy, but the ball expands past it, enveloping its arms and part of its halo before solidifying into amber. Siora tries to exhale, but starts to hyperventilate. She looks at the still glowing ruins as she continues to try and calm herself, crawling backward away from the specter. She closes her eyes again, feeling the energy from her friends as she begins channeling lightning through her body. Similar to Aultemus, she opens her eyes and sees streaks of lightning glowing through her skin as her pupils begin to glow. Okay, she inhales as she breathes again and extends her arms out, turning them into water. She shoots the water out in a torrent, enveloping the amber casing and freezing it into ice, encasing the specter even further. She returns her hands back to normal and channels thin discs of wind beneath her feet, allowing her to fly. She begins channeling a new ball of spirit magic, but now including wind and lightning. While doing this, she hears a whistling. Looking around frantically, she finally catches the specter's sword hurling toward it. She can only watch as it impales itself into the amber and ice, shattering it completely and freeing the specter. Siora begins hearing the winds pick up, as the specter's movements become strained. It attempts to ignore this, and it grabs its sword and charges Siora, who notices Zenti as a cloud nearby behind the specter. Siora flies up further away from the specter, who plants its sword into the ground and forms a spear of light, readying itself to throw. Siora tries to move erratically, but is not practiced with the magic she is using, and the specter expertly launches the spear, a column of air redirecting the spear to miss, but still takes some of Siora's armor. Siora rushes the specter as it readies another spear, and it launches it yet again, Siora letting go of her wind magic, falling straight down as the spear graces her hair, with yet another column of wind assisting in redirecting it. The specter grabs its sword and immediately goes for a swing. Siora, now close and underneath the specter, is completely centered in its strike. Siora releases her spirit orb in a concentrated beam that shoots out at the sword, which slices it in two. The beam holds back the sword, as Zenti appears from behind the specter, still pulling it back with wind. The three are locked in this struggle as the sword and specter struggle to follow through with the strike and Siora trying to maintain this beam. After a few agonizing moments of the struggle, someone comes up and slams the specter as it goes into one knee and loses leverage. The beam shoots the sword out of its hand and slams it into the specter's chest, sending it flying backward. Marcon appears from behind the figure as it flies past him. Siora's eyes widen as she still strains from the beam and lets it go, falling to the floor as all the energy from her dissipates. Marcon turns around and walks over to the specter, mace in hand. He stands over the specter, preparing to swing his mace as it's firmly planted into the dirt, a large gash on its chest of white light. The specter looks up, and its star eyes blink at him. Marcon narrows his eyes as he notices he cannot make out where its arms are and turns around to find its sword flying backwards, hilt first. Too late. As the specter's sword lands in its hand, it grips the sword and stands up to make a quick slice, but Marcon swings his mace into the sword and shatters it. Marcon sidesteps, exchanging some blows with the specter, but is extremely exhausted, and he is able to make a decisive strike to its head. It falls, and the starscape evaporates away to reveal a large, heavily armored woman with wings that are slightly opaque, the same size as before. However, her skin is completely jet black, as if no light is bouncing off of it, and she has no visible mouth. The overall morphology is still strikingly human as Mark inspects the creature, feeling the pristine and perfectly white and gold armor and sword. It feels and looks like nothing he's ever seen before. Aultemus continues to maintain his bolt of lightning, having to take a 1-second break every so often, but gains immense ground with each zap, slowly gaining on Valeria and trying to get in front of them. He reforms quickly, pulling a large piece of rock out of the ground straight up. He pulls it high enough to where the sword Valeria is riding on misses the rock, but Valeria is catapulted off of the sword, forcing her to let go of the spell on Eladir, who flies out of the shadow web and regains her bearings. She flies over to Aultemus as he walks over to Valeria. "We're split up. We should just leave. The other two are with..." Aultemus stammers out. "No, we have to get rid of her. She's just gonna chase us," Eladir contemplates. "Just get her between us and we'll form a current." Aultemus nods. They walk up to where they thought Valeria landed, but don't see her in the dug-up dirt that looks like her impact crater. They look around frantically. The landscape is the same as before, spiked obsidian rocks, various trees, and savanna. Ellider begins to turn her whole body into plasma as she floats a foot above the ground, pacing opposite to Aultemus, who infused himself with lightning. Suddenly, a giant disk forms in the air in front of the sun, completely blocking out in the area. The shade it makes slowly gets darker and darker. It doesn't get pitch black, but they can only see so far around them. Aultemus's lightning is visible through the darkness, and Ellider is completely illuminated. Humanoid figures emerge from behind rocks and from grass. They appear as wispy ghosts with the same silhouette as Valeria, with sage-green outlines and their hands, feet, and eyes. 2 figures float toward Aultemus, and 3 approach Ellider. At first they're slow, but in the blink of an eye, the 2 approach Aultemus, rush him, and begin to beat him with coordinated blows. One of them filling in as the real Valeria takes its place. The ones attacking Ellider all toss dark bandages infused with Valeria's energy around her, and begin lassoing her down to keep her grounded. Valeria and one of her images trade blows with Aultemus, as he goes from several strikes. Valeria swaps places with her other image, causing Aultemus' fist to pass through the ghost as they continue trading places, beating him. He manages to keep up and dodge as he figures out what to do. Ellider struggles with the shadow bandages holding her down, and before she can break free from any of them, one of the ghosts rushes her, Valeria filling in for the ghost as she begins to beat down Ellider as well. 2 more ghosts flank Ellider and grab her wings to keep her still as Valeria begins to channel spirit magic as she grabs Ellider's face. Aultemus zaps away from the images harassing him and gets behind Valeria and kicks her legs from under her. While she's prone, he forms a cone of flames around both of his hands, but notices Valeria has already swapped back to a different ghost, holding Ellider, and continues punching her, the ghost on the ground under Aultemus now gone. Ellider tries shooting beams of plasma at Valeria while encumbered, but Valeria manages to slip past them. Aultemus tries to help, but the other 2 images catch up and tackle him to the ground, covering his eyes with shadowy bandages. One breaks off and swaps to Ellider, who grapples her as the 3 ghosts stick to her and beat into her. While Ellider struggles, Valeria swaps back to one of the images grappling Aultemus, who is slowly beginning to lose consciousness as he struggles to land blows. Somehow he manages to grab the side of her head, heating his hands until cinders rapidly emerge. Valeria swaps to another ghost just before a giant fireball erupts from Aultemus before he loses consciousness. Ellider, trying to concentrate as she flails against the punching images, spins to shake off the images and Valeria. The plasma forming her body slowly goes brighter and brighter, expanding out and encompassing Valeria and all of her images. The dark disk in the sky fades as Valeria and Ellider lie still in an orb of plasma. After a moment, the orb dissipates and they both fall to the ground. Valeria, still awake, groans and lands one more punch, knocking Ellider out cold before slumping back down to the ground. Behind her, a portal opens. Too exhausted from the fight, Valeria crawls, her hands completely covered in blood, and is charred into her skin. A moment later, Trent walks out of the portal, his eyes meeting Valeria just before she crumples, her face meeting the dirt. Trent sidesteps the portal and, with a swift hand motion, lifts and tosses Valeria into it with a disgruntled sigh. He turns and follows, walking through it right before Markhan's hammer rushes by, missing Trent by only a blink. Markhan runs down from the ridge he's on, seeing a beam of fire shoot out into the sky not so far away. Trent places Valeria under the couch in his large office and goes to sit by his desk. He lets out a long sigh as he closes his eyes. A few minutes go by before Valeria begins to groan, regaining consciousness. Barely staying awake as she looks around, she realizes where she is and sits up on the couch, looks over to Trent. No more going after the bird with the god inside him. There's no point, Trent scolds. He drums his fingers against his desk, watching her intently. Do you remember the restaurant we worked at when we were kids? Valeria squints at him, cocking her head to the side. You're talking crazy again. I'm going to the bathhouse, she stammers, quickly standing up and losing her balance as she catches herself on one of the bookshelves. Trent rushes over and holds her up by her arm as she grimaces in pain. Trent goes to say something before he can speak, but Valeria grabs his face and a burst of sage-green mist shoots out from her palm. Trent falls over on his back, unconscious, as Valeria hurries, stumbling over to one of the windows and climbs out, covering herself in a black veil, and disappears. Sometime later, Trent wakes up from getting knocked out and sees the mysterious figure looming over him. How long have you been there? He asks, deflated. The figure doesn't respond as he gets up and walks over to his desk, grabs a bottle of liquor under his desk, and takes one long swig. Trent stares at the bottle for a prolonged moment before smashing it as hard as he can, directed at the figure, but the bottle only falls into it, as though he had just thrown it off of a cliff. Fucking Trent yells at the top of his lungs as nebula coalesce around him, feeding off of his anger. The sound of the bottle finally hits the ground and shatters, the sound filling the room as though you just heard it from the bottom of a ravine. The sound snaps Trent back to normal. He takes a deep breath, making sure not to completely lose his temper. The figure still just stands there, watching Trent as he walks over to the door and looks back over his shoulder. I'm gonna go get laid,